to 5. So I just want to welcome everybody to the 18th Annual Oxford Film Festival. Also, I want to thank everyone for joining us online. Because of COVID, we've had to change things up a little, and we did have an in-person fest as well as the month-long virtual fest this April. So thank you everyone for being flexible and for joining us this way. What other stuff do I have to say? Oh, I'm Donna. I'm the documentary programmer at Oxford. I was also the director of programming this year as well. So I always make the joke, if you don't like the movies, don't tell me. But I think our whole lineup this year was just incredible. And I'm so happy to have this group of films in this Q&A. And one more thing, if you need closed captions, if you're watching this, there's a little CC button on the bottom of the Zoom, and you can just click that and you will be able to get captions for the Q&A. So that is very helpful. All right. So I think first we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves, their film, and what their role was in the film, if that works for everyone. We'll start with Cassie.
Hi, I'm Cassie. Hey, and I'm here with Queens of Pain. I'm co-director of the film.
And I'm Amy Winston, other co-director of Queens of Pain.
And Katia and Gareth.
Yeah, my name is Katia, and I'm the director of Standstill.
And my name is Gareth Brown. I'm the co-producer of Standstill.
Wonderful. Yeah, both films are very, very different, but there are some overlaps in some ways that I'm kind of interested in exploring and talking about. But with docs, the first thing I usually talk about Queens of Pain is how did you come to the subject? How did you find it? What was your inspiration? How did you get there to filming this group of people?
Sure, I'm happy to take that one. So Cassie and I, full disclosure, we are sisters, and Cassie actually skated with Gotham Girls roller derby, who's kind of the subject of our film, way back in the mid-2000s. And it wasn't, Cassie's made a documentary before, and then I've just recently gotten into more video production. And around the Me Too movement, we just started having a lot of conversations that just came from that, talking about how can we have more stories of women uplifting each other, and damn, doesn't it suck what women have to go through just to follow their dreams? And we just had a lot of these questions and conversations we were talking about, and then we're like, Cassie, you skated with these awesome women and they're badass, and we should see what they're up to and see if there are any stories there. So that's kind of what led us down this path of kind of following 3 skaters throughout the season.
Yeah, Cassie, do you have anything to add to that? How did you end up skating?
I know. It's funny because I've worked in film and television professionally since for the past 20 years, but I was actually at work in New York City, and the art department coordinator had this calendar behind her desk of the Gotham Girls roller derby. So what the heck is that? And so we organized an office outing, and I think my coworkers just thought, oh, this is hilarious and wild and it's amazing. But it definitely struck a chord with me. You can't see me on Zoom, but I'm 5'2".
So am I.
But I grew up with a bunch of male friends who ended up being, Amy and I grew up in rural Texas, who ended up being, big football players. And I was used to, playing touch football with them as a kid, and then kind of got sidelined. And I saw this game that said, I don't know how to roller skate, but I sure do know how to hit. And I really got drawn in. And then it is a really interesting collective of women and a wonderful community where you could drop in any city where there's a team and call someone up and say, I need a couch. And so it really was an amazing kind of group to belong to. And then life kind of made me have to leave the group, but they're all still my friends. And so, when Amy, to dovetail on what Amy was saying, we were like, man, I really wish we could tell a story about community of women who are from different walks of life, but have to face struggles. And it's like, okay, it's right here in front of us. So it was really exciting and nice to see it so far removed, so I had a little bit more objectivity, but Amy really brought a great outsider eye to it as well.
Nice. It looks like director of The Recess made it. If you, hi Navid, do you want to introduce yourself real fast and your film as well? I don't know if you can hear me. Not. Maybe I'll put it in the
Hello,
chat.
you're talking to me?
Yeah. Can you just sort of introduce yourself
Sorry,
and your film? Oh,
the
it's
sound
fine.
is not really good.
Oh,
My name is NAVID NIKKHAH AZAD. I'm the director of The Recess. And thank you for having me at the meeting.
thank you for coming as well. We're just talking a little bit about how we ended up with the subjects of our films, how you got to sort of the place of making the film. But actually, we'll go with Standstill next, Katia and Gareth. Now, your film is a narrative film, but it deals with a very serious real life issue. And I remember watching it and sort of thinking like, it's like a narrative social issue film in some way, which you don't see a lot of, especially that are done really well, really well. And I just wondered how you kind of got to that genre, but also the issue itself and how you were interested in it.
Well, it started because I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 16. And so that changed the course of my life. And as I grew into my director skin and was looking at making my first professional short outside of film school, I think there was this creative blockage that no other subject was possible unless I explored this reflection of an issue which I felt needed a voice that knew it so intimately to give it, to make it accessible to a wider audience, because I felt like the subject has not been treated fairly yet, or fairly enough, or through the eyes of someone who actually had dug into it. It doesn't need to be lived experience, but it needs to be done with a certain level of research. And I come from a family of documentary filmmakers. So I think that aspect of embedding, crossing the bridge between narrative and fiction has always been, I think, part of my view of filmmaking. And so that's how I came to write Standstill. And it was a really liberating experience because after writing it, after making it, I felt that clog leave. And all of a sudden it was like all of the other subjects were available to me because I had sort of passed through that gate.
Why did you choose not to make a documentary? I mean, besides the fact your parents make documentaries, but I was interested in that because, like you said, it was a very personal and intimate experience, and your voice is in there. But I just wondered why you chose narrative.
So my dad made a feature documentary on teens living with type 1 diabetes across the world, and documentary has a beautiful quality of being immediate. But I think what I really wanted to speak to the narrative genre and crowd and reach through that gap where diabetes is never cool. And when you put it, like when you're doing it through a documentary, I felt like it had been done probably because I had participated in making one. But in the narrative sense, I wanted to give it the artistic treatment that I felt like it deserved and hadn't had.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you're right. Like it can reach a wider audience. It's like way more accessible than a documentary might be, especially when it comes to issues like that, where I feel like everyone who has type 1 diabetes will watch a type 1 diabetes film, but people who don't have it might not. And I felt like that was really lovely too, that it kind of opened itself up to a broader audience in a big way. And Navid, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? I'm going to try to put it in the chat real quick. Sorry, it's really boring to watch me type.
Okay.
Oh, Are you there?
Sorry, I have trouble with the sound.
Okay, I'm gonna try to chat. I think Ak said. Oh. All right. Typing fast. Let's see if he gets it.
Okay, sorry.
We're getting a tour of his apartment building and the sunrise. Oh, he's gone. I did send the questions, but I don't know if I should wait or keep going.
We can keep talking to the others.
And
And
keep
let him
talking?
settle.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. All right, let's see. What else did I have? So in all of the films, actually, the way that the story kind of develops, I just felt that it was really, really well done in both of them. Now, Queens of Pain, I will not lie, as a documentary programmer, I've seen so many films about your subject that were horrible. It's just, I don't know. I just didn't understand them. I didn't understand. They weren't working on many levels like yours is. Yours is addressing so many different issues. And also, like, it's a sports doc, it's a feminist doc. It also dealt with aging in the sport really well, which, like, as an aging human being, that's always important to me and something that I want to explore. So I just felt like the way that you kind of layered the themes in the film was just done really, really well. And like, you spoke about going into making it, sort of thinking about Me Too and everything, but did you expect all these things to kind of come out of the story when you were making it, or were you filming and you were like, oh, this is all here and we didn't realize it?
I will say that it's really nice to hear that, because we had the same feeling about a lot of the documentaries about roller derby before, which was actually one of the things that gave us pause. So we're like, a lot of people have tried to tell this story in a way that I don't know that anyone that's not a player would find interesting. So that was our jumping off point, was that we wanted it to be a film about women that just happens to be set in the roller derby world. And so that was really important to us story-wise. And those were a lot of the themes that we wanted to touch on, but we originally only thought we were going to use Susie, who's kind of the superstar of the sport. And then we quickly realized how much more interesting it would be if we accessed the different story points from different people at different levels in their career. And we got really lucky because, and then I'll toss it over to you, Amy. Amy is a great writer and storyteller who really helped us with our story. So much of it was written in a paper edit before. And then I'll let Amy speak to kind of the nature of how we shot it, because that also kind of made it unfold in that way.
Yeah, so like Cassie said, we have Susie, who's kind of the Michael Jordan, LeBron James of the sport. And then we have another subject, Eva Licious, who we knew before shooting. She was recovering from a C-section and wanting to get back into the sport. And we started filming when her baby was 3 months old. And then we found a rookie, Captain Smack Sparrow, who we thought, oh, this will be a great lens for the audience. She's new to the sport. The audience will be new to the sport, and we can just tell kind of that story of falling in love with the sport. And then our crew and Cassie and myself, we were located in San Francisco and Austin at the time, and all of the filming was done in New York on very little budget. And so the way our shoot schedule ended up is we kind of keep track of our subjects and call them, what's going on in your life. And then we would plan a weekend where we would just fly a red-eye Thursday, film part of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, and then red-eye back home and go to work. And so the story really evolved over the course of the shoot when Sparrow loses her job and she has to find another one. And, Eva, who's recovering from a C-section, is having a lot harder time getting into things. And so the story really evolved as we were filming, and then we were just kind of keeping track of different story points and gravitating to what we found interesting. So that's kind of how all of these layers of stories really just came out naturally, and then we kind of focused on those in the editing process.
Yeah, it was just done so well. I can't tell you how many times I've watched just like docs where it was like, okay, here's my bruise, now let's skate. And I was like, whoa, this is much more than that. Thank you. Well, I think Navid is back. So let's hop back to him real quick. Can you hear me, Navid, or no?
I can hear you, but the sound is very low.
Okay, I put a question in the chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, I saw the question about how I came up with the idea for making the recess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in my country, the tragedy had happened with the self-immolation of Sahar Khodayari when she killed herself by pouring oil on herself and firing herself. So at that time, I was just watching the news, watching the reactions of the people. So I really wanted to make a film about this, but I didn't want to focus on what happened. You know, the very idea that I had was her past was distorted by the government, by the media, and she had no past. So I thought I have to make a film to give her a proper past.
You kind of just answered the second
you know,
question.
I'm not a real fan of the documentary movies, and I don't know how to make a documentary. I really like the narrative cinema. So, but I wanted to make a short film, a narrative that has no drama. You know, the drama happens outside the movie, not inside the movie. And now in some films that I had watched in the last 2 years, they were important movies, but they were just narrative, and there was no drama. It was just like real life. So in the story of the recess, I was thinking to just narrate 1 hour before the tragedy happens. So I was not trying to rebuild reality. I was not trying to say this is what happened. I think my film is more about a girl who wants to go to football stadium, to have the same right as others. I believe that my film is not a sad movie because it's trying to give hope to the audience, and the ending music we came up with the music at the ending, a music that is uplifting, is trying to give hope to the audience. So what I thought later was that the captions are sad. The captions are talking about a tragedy that happened in my country, about how the wishes of a young girl died away. But at the same time, we are giving hope. We are giving hope to other girls that you can continue her way. You can try to enter a football stadium and stand up for your rights.
Yeah, and I really liked what you just said about telling the story telling the story before the tragedy, because I think that you're totally right. Like so often when there's a news story or conflict or an act of activism or protest, it becomes this, there's only a dramatic thing that gets covered in the media. You don't cover her real life. And I really love the fact that you said you started an hour before and just showed her excitement about going to a football stadium and showing her as a real person, showing her having fun, you know, like getting ready to do something she really loved. And I feel like that was a really, really bold decision, and it was just really done well. And you provided hope too in showing like she didn't care. She was going to do what she needed to do, and in the end it was tragic, but also a symbol for a lot of other people to continue her mission or continue to have the same passion that she did. So yeah, that was really, it's very, very beautiful. All right, so we're gonna pivot away for a minute. And we were talking about story and how we how the Queens of Pain story was developed. And then I was thinking that about Standstill. How did you get to this particular storyline? You know, it almost had like a sci-fi feel to it in a strange way to me when I was watching it. I don't know, something about kind of this like moment in time that's suspended in some way. And I just wondered how you ended up developing that story.
I think it started from the fact that I used to drive to work for 2 hours every day. And it was at that moment in the same time where I was like, okay, how do I want to make my first professional short? And I had just this single image of what will happen to me right now if I didn't have sugar in my car, which sometimes, honestly, it does happen that there isn't anything. We try to make it not happen, but life is such that sometimes the container is empty, you know? And I had this vision of an overpass with a car that's blocking everyone from advancing. And just felt like, yeah, that could be me. And so that image was the starting point for the journey. And I think in a similar way, it's about what leads up to that event, and less about like the repercussions of that event.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about how you go from being a person, a fully fledged person, and how we strip things away from you bit by bit until all that's left is a skeleton. And in this case, you know, that's what it feels like viscerally to have a low blood sugar. And part of the narrative was built in a way to create a physical experience in the viewer rather than an intellectual one.
No, that the physical experience, I think that definitely translates. And I like the idea that you started with kind of one image and like built upon that, you know. I thought that's really, really interesting. Looking at the chat real fast. Let me see. Questions. Let's see, what other things? Oh, one thing that I was interested in, it doesn't really relate to Queens of Pain exactly, but finding people to act in your film for Standstill. How did you, I'm sorry, I'm being asked to do questions in advance, but I can't do that right now. How did you cast your films? This is going to be for NAVID as well. How did you cast the films, especially because they were such, I don't know, serious subjects, and like yours was very personal, Katia, and with NAVID's it was very political and a very intense story that was covered in the media. And I just wondered how you went about kind of figuring out who would play this version of you or play this woman who had a tragedy in her life. How did you find actors to kind of understand what you were doing and how you were doing it? Does that make sense? I think.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I have read a lot about different people doing different casting processes, and so I was at the stage where I was like, I want to experiment with one method, which was not auditions. It was about meeting someone and having a conversation with that person for long enough to get a sense of the range of that actor, of how they connect to the story, and of how we communicate. And so I met Victoria for coffee, and we just clicked, and we stayed there for 3 hours. And by the end of it, we had covered enough topics that I knew that she had touch points to the story that weren't necessarily like mimicking her lived experience at all, but I could tell from our understanding that we were speaking a similar language, and that there would be trust. And I needed her to trust me to kind of work on the performance until we were ready to go for that long take. And equally, you know, she needed to trust me with that journey as well. So I felt that there was that space with her, and that it was I think following your instinct is really important.
Mm-hmm. And Navid, can you hear me now? Maybe not. Don't think so.
Yes, I'm really
okay.
sorry for what happened, because I had problem with my audio. I couldn't hear anything.
Okay,
and I'm really sorry for that.
It's fine.
And this meeting is really important for me.
My internet dies all the time, so it's totally fine. I understand. But I was just asking how you went about casting for your film, especially because it was a very, like, it's based on a real story, a pretty controversial subject. And I wondered how you went about finding actresses to be in your film and to portray this particular event. Or, I mean, since you kept the drama out and you made it more about the person and the people, it probably wasn't as difficult, but still, I thought the women in your film were very, very great actors and very well cast. So I wondered how you went about that process. Did you just do a casting call? Did you look for particular people?
Actually, maybe it's something very strange when I talk about it, because my last successful film was in 2013. It was called Motherly. So after 7 years, no one really knew me to work with me, and I didn't want to give anyone my script, because the issue was really hot, and I didn't want people to tell each other what the script was. But my lead actress, Mojan, actually I had seen her in a student short movie, and it was the first work of a female director, and I really liked her from 2 years ago. So I just went over to Instagram and gave her a direct message. We met and we talked, and that was it. And the other three each had a story. Like one of the girls, the one called Tahura, was a friend of mine who likes to make short movies. She's not really serious about acting. Or another person, they didn't have really professional experience in acting, and we spent a lot of time on the set, working on the scene acts. We had like 9 days of shooting, and we were shooting over 80 scenes. And when my film was finished editing, I believe the editing is really good, and my father has edited my movie, but I deleted like 5 minutes of what I had shot on the set, 5 minutes of final editing. But the process was really hard. You know, in some scenes, we had like 20 or 30 takes. And I think at that time, this really wore the actress out, made them exhausted.
Well, you couldn't tell. They all seemed completely in it and fresh. And yeah, they were really, the acting was just really wonderful, especially for such a big subject. Yeah. Now, Queens of Pain, you had said earlier that you thought it was good, your film was going to be about one person, and then you kind of like opened it up to more when you realized that how much more could be said and how much more was there. But how do you narrow that down? Did you like immediately, you said you knew one of the people already, but how did you kind of go about your casting process in some way? Like, did you follow more people? I know in some documentaries people will follow like 8 people and then cut out 5 of them, and there's sadness for everyone who got cut, and anger. But I just wondered how that went about for you, or if it was different. Or
I think it was, we were so happy to find Captain Smack Sparrow, and I think she's really the heart of the film. And we had actually looked at several rookies that we when we got permission from the league to film, we said we really want to film a rookie, and they sent us kind of a list of some rookies who were open to being filmed rather. And as kind of in the same way, Katia, that you did, we really just sat and talked with them. And it was, I can't speak for Amy, but from the get-go, when we talked to Sparrow, we're like, oh my gosh, she's so open and honest. And that was really refreshing. And also, because a lot of the skaters wear a lot of armor, you know, kind of, and she was really generous in what she shared with us. And I'll toss it to Amy.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, you know, Cassie had skated on the same team as Susie, so that's how we knew her and kind of why we were first going to feature her solely. And then around at the same time, Cassie was a skater. Eva Licious was also skating, and they just kept in touch. And when, you know, word gets around the league pretty fast when you're going to come in there with a camera crew. And so I think old skaters were kind of getting in touch with Cassie, and then we heard that she was recovering from a C-section and that she was going to do what many think is the unthinkable and try to skate again after something like that. A lot of women do end up leaving the sport if they decide to have a child. So that's, Cassie had a personal relationship with Eva kind of before we started, but after talking to her about her situation at the time and asking if we could tell her story, she said yes. So we kind of had 2 skaters who Cassie had known previously, and then like Cassie said, we interviewed new skaters, rookie skaters, and then just really Sparrow kind of struck a chord with us and was very open and honest with her experience, and letting us follow her and letting us sit in her living room while she slept 3 hours before she went to a new job in the morning, and let us follow her doing that. So she was very gracious, and that's kind of how we found these 3 women and decided to follow them.
Yeah, it was an interesting balance. And Nathan, who came to the Oxford Festival in person with us, was our producer. He's not on this call, but it was really helpful to have Amy, Nathan, and Joe Mayo, our wonderful cinematographer DP, because there are times when you have to put on your filmmaker hat and not your friend hat. And one thing we were really aiming for was getting those intimate moments. And Amy and I both have children, and we had to stop and put the filmmaker hat on and say, well, Eva, I know you've been out all day, but it's 3 a.m. and we want to film you checking in on your baby in the middle of the night. It was helpful to have them as well to kind of push a little harder and get it and tell the story better. And
But on the flip side, it helps that they're your friends and they won't hate you at the end of a long shoot day when you're filming them with their crying baby. So, you know, there's that balance there too.
Yeah, you actually, the other thing I was thinking about too was how intimate it was. And like you just said, like you're friends with them, but like their decision to show some of the intimate moments, I specifically like, I think it was Susie at work. There was something about that like, I feel like, I don't know, it just added to her characterization. It showed her like in control in another way. And it showed her kind of like I guess when I used to live in New York too, and thinking about how you actually have to make a living and do your passion sometimes in different ways, and they intersect in the same time. But like, I felt like that was a really unique approach too. And I wondered about your director of photography, or who was filming, because I know you put people in the situations that they're in, but at the same time, like there were some moments that were just really, I think people wouldn't have thought to film her at work in that way, you know, and sort of show her so closely in the ways that you did. And there were multiple scenes like that, like scenes in Susie's apartment as well, or that one scene where there's like the media talking to the person that won, and she's sort of like, I'm awesome too, you know, like, so how did you kind of like go about like making those calls? Like, how did you decide what should be filmed or what shouldn't? Or I don't know. I feel like it really showed a multitude of their personalities, and in such a close way because you're friends. But still, how did you kind of develop that?
I think one thing that Eva talked about, and when I was involved too, so we were in New York, and it was really easy for the media to grab members of the Gotham team for the little kind of flippant pieces about the sport, and by day they work here, and by night they are crazy roller derby girls. And one of our big goals was to show them as people, and so we did brainstorm ways to do that and to kind of bridge those moments where they're being shown as, you know, the showing the artifice, but then what is really behind it. And so we definitely had a lot of conversations about how we could do that. And Amy, sorry to.
I was going to say just extra credit to our cinematographer, Joe Mayo, because Cassie and I, having spent a lot of time building relationships with our subjects, it was very important for us that they felt respected, and they didn't feel like we were taking advantage of them or trying to get something for shock value, like when one of the Eva's breastfeeding, or, you know, we wanted to show Susie's body, which is an insane built body, but not do it in a overly sexual way. And so we worked with Joe a lot. And then there are some times where maybe Cassie and I would have played it on the safe side, but Joe kind of delicately just went with this camera and was close with our subjects. And, you know, there was one moment where one of our subjects said, you know, stop, I need a break. And we respected that. But otherwise, I think they had a lot of faith in us that we wouldn't mistreat their story or show them in a way that wasn't real.
Yeah, the realness of it definitely comes through too, because sometimes you think they have this on skates persona, but you also were able to get underneath that and show them as people, not just this like archetype or something that I think a lot of sports stocks try to do sometimes in a big way. I had a question for Gareth down there. You're on the bottom of my screen. So, so how did you get involved in the production, and sort of what was your thoughts on approaching it the way that you did, on the way that Katia did, the way that she was casting? You know, some of the stuff she did doesn't sound that traditional, but also you said it's her first like film out of school, which is an incredible feat for your first short out of school, just incredibly like done. So, but how did you get involved, Gareth? I'm just interested in how, I think young filmmakers especially are interested in how to kind of get their work made and done.
Yeah, well, it was my first short as well. So it's the first time that I produced a film, and I got involved because I used to work in engineering and did a lot of project management and program management, kind of managing a budget, things like that. And Katia comes to me and she says, yeah, I'm looking for a producer. I think you'd be good at this. And so I said, well, okay. I read the script in Ottawa, sat on the Canadian plateau, kind of looking in the park. And it was the first time that I really understood what was going on inside. I mean, we've been friends for, what, 6-7 years at the time. And I was reading this script going, wow, I had no idea that any of this happened. Because day to day, people put such a brave face on for whatever condition it is, in this case diabetes, but you just don't see it. Even though you can be really close friends with somebody, it just doesn't come across. And as I'm reading the script, I think we need to make this film. This needs to come out, and it's such, as you were saying earlier, it's such a universal subject that it doesn't just apply to diabetes. So that's how I came on board, and I said, okay, give me a crash course in producing, because you'd produced a feature and produced a couple of other things, and you'd always produced your shorts in the past. So let's do this together. And you gave me a rundown, and we sat in our living room and made a big plan of everything that we needed to do. And we talked about the techniques, whether that was for casting or crew recruitment or catering, whatever it is. And yeah, your casting is certainly unique in terms of not doing a traditional audition, so to speak, but I think it's so important to have that rapport that you had with
it was building
Victoria.
communication.
Building the communication, that really came through on the set as well, because you could tell that both of you understood each other innately. You hardly had to really say anything to her in many ways. There was a lot of body language, a lot of non-verbal communication going on there. You did talk, evidently, but that level of bond, and the long scene at the end that was shot as a single take, that was really, really massively tiring. It was 38 degrees on a highway in the middle of the countryside that we shot. Celsius.
Yeah. Celsius.
38 Celsius, 100 plus Fahrenheit, and everybody was melting. And the shot at sunset right at the end of the day, and I think that's what really brings out what you feel inside and what a lot of diabetics feel. And it's not just you. There's cases of people driving the wrong way down the highway because they're low. It really messes with your head. And yeah, so that's really how I came on with that. But I really think that those techniques and just building that bond with the cast, with the crew, with everybody, really brought everyone together, because we didn't have any budget really for this film. We were supported by Calc in Canada, so we had enough to pay for the equipment and everything else, and that was great because all that stuff costs money. But we were so blown away by the generosity of everybody to be there for so long and
under such physically demanding
conditions.
Yeah.
Because it was a very physical shoot, but yeah, you did really well, and it was amazing for me to be able to say, hey, like, I actually know what it's like to produce, but I don't want to produce and direct while like on set. I don't mind doing some bits before and after as well, but I just wanted my director head, and it was amazing to be able to really trust someone with that.
Yeah, and project management, that is production. So good for you, Katia, for putting Gareth into a new profession in some ways. But yeah, no, that's really true. And I guess, Navid, this question could go for you as well. How did you kind of make your filmmaking team? How did you find everyone to be involved in your film? I think especially, like, I don't know politically how difficult it was to get the film made, but I wondered if it was hard to sort of get people behind it in some way, or did you have like this close team of people you worked with before who were like ready to show the story?
Okay, let me start with two things. And actually, it's now 2:14 in the morning in Iran.
Oh, thank you
Yeah,
for
so
being,
it's
thank you for being
yeah,
here.
yeah, I really liked to join the meeting, and it was really important for me. And the second thing is English is second language, so maybe I have difficulty saying what I really mean. So I'm trying hard. And again, I'm sorry for the inconvenience at the start of the meeting.
Don't apologize.
Yeah, you know, when I wanted to make this film, I really wanted this to happen, because my last film 4 years ago, I made a film and it was not good. And I was not feeling well making that movie. So making this movie was proving myself to myself.
Mm.
And you know, I didn't have really much money. So when I decided to make this film and started this, I ended up selling my car and borrowing a lot of money from people. And in the last year, I have been giving back the money, and this is still going on till 5 months. 5 months later. But you know, the process of choosing who to work with was really hard. You know, the way I chose the actresses was, you know, I searched for them, and maybe I found two of them on the Instagram. You know, we had a casting call, but they were all amateurs and unprofessional actors, and they were not good. So I trust my instincts and went with it. And when I chose them, I was thinking they are the right people. And you know, some of the crew, I knew some of the crews. Like the editor was my father. My father is a well-known producer in Iran. He has worked with Jafar Panahi, and their film The Mirror won the Golden Leopard in Locarno in 1996.
Mm.
And my sister, she's also an actress, but in my field was the still photographer.
Mm.
And about some of the people I had searched, I knew them, I called them, and but the thing was that when I was making this film, it was as if people were unsure if this short film going to be a good movie. You know, there were a lot of scenes to take, and then my film was not a drama, was just in a narrative and short film. So, but I really had belief in what I was doing. I really believed in it, and I have had this belief in the last year. You know, we have been rejected in a lot of film festivals. And after that, I changed the editing. So I deleted 5 minutes of them. You know, this film was a really, I don't know how to say, was a really great journey for me to know myself, to fight for myself, to fight for the purpose I have in my life. Maybe the difference. I had a different belief to make this film. Some people, when they make a movie, they believe in the subjects. They leave the subjects and say, okay, I'm going to make a movie about human rights. I'm going to make a movie about women. I'm going to make a movie about social justice. But my approach to this film, to the idea, to the script, was that maybe I was not really. In the past, I have not really defended human rights. I have not really approached women issues. Although almost all my films were about women, but I try to make films about the subject that I want to start living those subjects. For example, when I want to start being a very good person, I think I should make a movie about humanity. If I want to, this is all the films is like a therapy for me. It's like a recovery for me, a therapy. So I'm sorry for that. So before I make a movie, it's really about me. And after that, it's about what I'm going to make. Maybe some people think of what I'm saying as degrading, but for me, it's really valuable to be a better person in the world. And I know I have to make a lot of films to become a better person that I am now.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying I get that. Like your film, it's an extension of you. I think every film is an extension of the filmmaker to some degree. And I also think that idea of kind of expressing something that you want to see in the world or that you want to be more of a part of. I think all three of the films that are represented here do that incredibly well, in very different ways. Like you're showing the humanity in whatever the topic is, in whatever the subject is, and ultimately I think that's why we should make films. But we're running out of time, unfortunately, but I kind of want to know what is next for all of you, or I know it's COVID time, so who knows what's really the future holds, but what's next for the film? What are you working on? I love all of your movies, so I definitely like to know what's next. So how about Queens of Pain? What's next for Queens of Pain? Are you working on anything or thinking about working on anything, or?
So we are in talks with some other film festivals, so we'd like to bring the film to more people that way. And then with roller derby kind of being on hiatus, the sport, we've been talking about the idea of working with different teams and bringing the film to teams, kind of bringing some roller derby back into their lives. And then Cass and I have been talking a lot about I think we'll do a short for our next project instead of feature length. And we've been talking about, there's this quirky little radio station in Texas that just plays Muzak. And so we've been talking about the history of Muzak and how it's used, and it's been used to help treat PTSD and all of these other things. So it's just something we've talked about.
That sounds great to me. I'm excited about that. Cassie, I know you're working on those things, but do you have anything to add, or?
Oh yeah, well, I just also wanted to just thank you for bringing all of us together, because it's just been such an amazing opportunity to get the film out there, especially during COVID times, to have screenings again. And I really miss watching films in a theater, so I'm excited that that's hopefully on the horizon. And yeah, I mean, to piggyback on what Navid said, I just think, at the end of the day, there are days when you're making these films where you're like, how am I going to put one foot in front of the other? And I do think you just have to care and keep caring and dig deep and just care some more. So that's kind of an inspiring thing to be around filmmakers again and see a lot of people who just really like put it out there and put their heart into it. So it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And Katia and Gareth, what's next for you, or what's next for Standstill? Is it at any point going to be like online? I don't think I could only find like the trailer before, but I mean, it's playing at online festivals, but I also feel like more people are going to want to see it outside of the fest setting.
Yep, that's it. So we're having a public release later on this year. So we still have a few festivals lined up with premiere status. So we can't make the public release until after those, but you can watch it all this month, obviously at Oxford. Yeah. So that's coming later this year. We shot 2 films last year, 2 more narrative shorts.
Wow.
One which was written in May, one which we were supposed to shoot in April and got delayed because of COVID, so we shot that in August. Very close to finishing one. It's in the grade and sound design mix phase at the minute, so that'll be out in the world in the next 2-3 weeks, potentially going out to the festivals. And then the other one is going to take us a little bit more time, so there'll be a little stagger there. So
we're just looking for titles for those last 2 shorts.
Just why I can't say.
I also like that now you're officially a producer, Gareth. You're AIM now. You're done.
So it went from friendship to like dating to also like reeling in the producer.
Yeah, new career. So
it's been a busy couple of years for you too. And then NAVID, what is next for The Recess? Is it playing? You said that it's played some festivals, but not many. Are you trying to get into more festivals, or are you going to ever show it online or in some other way, like beyond festivals? Or also, what are you working on next, or do you have another project that you're thinking about making?
Okay, before I answer that, I want to congratulate both films, Queens of the Paint and Standstill, to all the crews behind those films. And it's really beautiful talking to you here, to the filmmakers. And actually, yes, there are a lot of film festivals that they have not changed or submission. They are in consideration. Like I think about 70 or 80 film festival we have not heard from them, and still I'm trying to submit to film festival, but because of international sanction, it's really hard. We can't pay money, and actually, about the question, I forgot to answer that question. That if there was because of political reasons, if we had issues. No, we had no issues. When we started to make this film, no one bothered us. After, because we promote the news of the recent success, on the media, on Instagram, but on an Instagram page or trailer. On the death anniversary of Sahar Khodayari, we published the trailer on a popular Instagram page, and it was like 30,000 views. But in this time, all through the last year, no one really called us to say why you made this film, because they know we simply made a short film on a social issue, many people in Iran, when they make their film, they try to have their voice heard by, for example, selling their movie, their flick to the news channel that the government is against them. So I didn't try to do that. But you know, I'm still trying to submit to film festivals, and you know, I have a world sales agent in Spain. The company is called Field Sales. I think they are popular in Spain, and they're you know, I think each win for the recess, each selection can help that when we want to have the film screened in like TV stations, or we have not really put the film online, but there are film festivals that try to screen the film online. And you know, I really you know, I think Oxford Film Festival is a favorite for me. And before Oxford, we had a screening in the Cine Lebu Film Festival, which is Academy Awards qualifying. We were in international competition, but I feel like a closeness to Oxford Film Festival. It was a very big thing happening for me, and I don't know, when I was notified I was selected in Oxford, I think it was the beginning. It was the beginning of the this journey for me. So this is really big for me, being in Oxford, and I think you know, in all, we have been selected in like 12 or 13 film festivals up to now, and 2 recently that we haven't made it official yet. But I think my experience with Oxford was really great, really great.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad we're
yeah.
and
And let me make it.
We're running out of time. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to say one more thing? It's 2 a.m. So I'm letting you speak whenever you have. Whatever you have to say.
1 or 2 minutes. Yes, I have a project. I want to make a short film, but I think it will be in a year's time because of the COVID-19. I really love that subject. The whole thing happens in the subway, and it's the meeting of 2 sisters. But you know, like the style in and how we develop the narrative in the recess. This film will be like without drama as well. It's just the narrative. It's just a narrative of the story. We are not going to push anything like a conflict. The conflict hasn't started before that. And I like that movie, and I think I make that movie, and I can be in the next edition of Oxford Film Festival, and I will be quite honored if I can make that film and make it to the Oxford.
Oh, I hope so. Definitely submit it. But thank you so much for being here. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. I really, like I said, I think your films are all fabulous, and I hope people will watch them online. And thank you so much for this Q&A. I thought it was really lovely. It was great to see a bunch of filmmakers sort of bounce off of each other and kind of feed each other a little bit. You know, I think we all need that mental and heart nourishment that we've been lacking without the physical festivals that much. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And I guess we're done then.